Hey everyone, my name is Elizabeth Slagboom and I'm your fellow English 101 classmate. I just wanted to take the time to talk a little bit about Essay 5 and some interesting things I learned about while researching for my essay. So my essay is entitled The Boogeyman Tactic, Parenting Across Cultures. And as you know, our prompt was to explore one monster throughout different cultures, specifically three, one being non-Western and the other being a Western culture. So I chose to write about different boogeymen and in parts of Europe, Latin America, and Japan specifically. The reason why I chose to write about boogeymen was because it's such a universal monster compared to things like Frankenstein or Dracula. The boogeyman can be found literally throughout time and different cultures. And through my research, I found that one of the main reasons why it exists is because parents use it as a device to discipline their children and elicit obedience. And another aspect of the boogeyman is it is also used by parents to keep their children safe. So it is used to discipline and keep children safe. The main point I wanted to make in my essay that it was really something that parents started to manipulate their child into doing things, like I said, behaving. And that brought up the next question as to why do parents do this? And the real question was, why do parents discipline their children? So that brought me to Stephen T. Asma's book on monsters, and specifically it brought me to the topic of the psychoanalytic theory by Freud. So throughout the child's younger years, parents will constantly discipline and tell the child what is right or wrong, and they act as the conscience. But as the child matures, they start having their own conscience, which was developed off of what their parents told them. And so in that way, the parents act as a conscience in the early years of childhood, and the older years of childhood, the child has their own conscience. And the whole aspect of conscience really plays into, in my opinion, it plays into the boogeyman, because to, like I said, discipline, but also to keep their children safe. And to me, the boogeyman is really an age-appropriate way of telling kids, don't go outside when it's dark, or don't do this because it's dangerous, because someone might come and take you. Instead of doing that, parents can say, don't go over there or the boogeyman's gonna get you. So backtracking a little bit, specifically in my essay I wrote about the Latin American monsters of El Cucuy and La Llorona, and please forgive me for mispronouncing names. And I wrote about Krampus, which can be found in parts of Europe, and the Namahagi, which is a boogeyman found in Japan specifically. So really I wrote about 4 monsters, but in terms of keeping a coherent message throughout the essay, other than that they're all boogeyman used to keep children safe and discipline, the Latin American monsters El Cucuy and La Llorona have some similar themes, and Namahagi and Krampus have some similar themes as well. So Namahagi, just to give you a little brief summary, Namahagi is a sort of tradition that can be found in parts of rural Japan. And it is basically the tradition that on New Year's Day, several men will dress up in these like sort of straw, shaggy costumes and don these colorful, scary masks, and they will go from house to house and basically run around and scare children and scream at children, if you've been bad, I'm going to take your ears. I'm looking for all the children who have whined or complained. And the tradition is basically to punish children that have been bad throughout the year. And so there's a lot more to it, but on the just basically you need to know that it's a thing that happens annually on New Year's Eve, and the purpose of it is to punish children. And then likewise, there's Krampus from parts of Europe. It originates from Austria specifically, but it can be found in like Germany as well and some other countries. So Krampus is, he comes out annually with the Christmas celebrations, and he's kind of like a bad Santa. He's very similar to Namahagi in that he's an annual boogeyman, and he goes around scaring children and from house to house and, you know, screaming at them and stuff like that. And when I say screaming, I mean more like playful yelling. It's very young children, so any little thing can be very terrifying. And the fact that men are dressed up in these shaggy costumes with big curling goat horns and like a grimace with like fangs, you know, that's gonna scare children too. So in terms of getting into the more Latin American monsters, I found that El Cucuy was a very generalized monster. I talked to a lot of people, and most of them didn't really have a set description or even a description at all of what he looked like or what their parents told them he looked like. So I found that to be very interesting. But Ya Llorona had a little bit of a more traceable, actually a lot more traceable storyline. So it is said that Ya Llorona is the ghost of a mother that drowned her children after she found out that her husband was essentially cheating on her. And she can be found at river bottoms or other areas, but traditionally river bottoms, weeping at night, looking to take away any child that she sees wandering about, because she was barred from entering heaven until she can find her own children back. So basically, if you're a child wandering out at night and she sees you, she will take you because she thinks you're one of her children. And she's trying to obviously get back into heaven. So in that sense, I think Ya Llorona is one of those monsters probably more used to warn children not to go into a certain area or environment, because she's used more in a way that says, don't go over there, don't go outside, don't go out at a certain point at night. So I think she's more used in that real world sense of being aware of strangers. And El Cucuy, I think, is set more towards a younger population, and it's more just based on whatever descriptions the parents tack onto it. I heard one of my friends who is of Latin American origin, he told me that his parents tell his niece to behave, or else the crazy man will get her. So I think El Cucuy is a very, like I said, generalized boogeyman. And on the other hand, Krampus and Namahagi are very specific, and they really do have a tacked on description to them. And another aspect I brought into my research paper was how boogeymen have been sort of modernized and stripped of their traditional disciplining role. And I think that is can be seen in things like the recent 2015 fantasy horror film Krampus, in which Krampus terrorizes a family on Christmas. And likewise, the Namahage is also being commercialized in Japan, because recently there have been an annual festival called Namahage Matsuo Sedo, probably mispronouncing, but it's a festival in which Namahage is celebrated so that tourists can come into the towns and, you know, create revenue, and it's essentially to celebrate Namahage and bring in visitors. In that sense, I really think that the Namahage, there's so many other types of boogeymen out there, and like I said, it's a really universal theme. So I really encourage you to Google different boogeymen across the world, because talking about the Namahage, Krampus, El Kukui, and Llorona, they're only like 4, and there's so many more interesting ones out there I only had time to expand and research for. But if you Google boogeyman in different cultures, you will find many more interesting ones. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. I know I was rambling a little bit, but I just wanted to share some interesting points. And I hope that you all have either finished your finals or are finishing them up, and have a great winter break. Bye!